breather?
No one.
What's up, Gator Nation? Welcome into the latest Gators Online show. Zach Albaverdi and Nick Del Torre here. Hope everybody's week has went well. We're going to be joined by another GO member today as Keith Niebuhr joins the show to give you guys the latest from the recruiting trail. We've got 5-star updates. We've got eval period updates. So a lot to talk about. Of course, transfer portal to get into, and also some speaking tour takeaways from our boy Nick. How you doing, my friend?
Good. Gators Online was on the road. Me down in South Florida. You know, I get to see some family down there, and then Keith has been on the road ever since he got here, and Corey was out at IMG for their spring game. So there's been a ton of updates, and of course, you know, as we'll get to in the last 5 minutes, Zach, Florida's got a big baseball series this week.
Yep, absolutely, winding down. I think though, obviously with the sweep that they got last weekend, they're going to get another series, I would say, in the ballpark. So, but let's obviously kick off the show with recruiting, and as we bring in Keith Niebuhr from Gators Online on 3. Keith, how's it going, my friend?
Yeah, I'm good. We'll get this camera thing on my end figured out, man. I'm not super technically savvy here, but everything's good, man. Like you said, we've been out on the road checking out recruits. I mean, I'm not an evaluator, so when I go to schools, it's more to learn about their recruitments than to actually watch them. But it's been productive. I think the readers have enjoyed it, but we've really tried to learn what we can about recruits and recruitments this spring. And so I think it's been good all the way around to get out and meet these people, get that face-to-face time. And, as you go back more and more, and you guys know this because you did this before when I do, the more you go back, the more they start to trust you. You know, when you're meeting the 5-star Jeremiah Smith, the big receiver for the first time, he doesn't know you from Adam, so he's a little cautious. Next time I go down there, to South Florida, they'll know me a little bit better. So that's why you really want to get out on the road more and more and more. And then when kids end up picking UF, you've got more resources. You've got you can pick up the phone and people around those kids can tell you what's going on at UF. So it's very good for us for our reporting, but it's also really good for the reader. That's the most important thing.
Oh, they have some good golf courses down there in South Florida too, Keith.
Yeah, honestly, Dade and Broward County ain't that great for golf. I haven't hit balls in 2 weeks, but Dade's got some, but not what you would think. Obviously, Broward not as many. Palm Beach County, that's where it really starts. But I like the hilly courses, man. I like. That's why I like those road trips to Georgia and Alabama. I think hate to say it, but the top courses in those states are very competitive with the top courses in Florida, obviously, but. No, I mean, we didn't really have time to hit balls. I know you didn't either, probably down there, Nick. It's actually a busy time of year, but it's a productive time of year because we're learning stuff every day. That's the most important thing.
Well, and anytime you go to STA, Keith, all you got to do is drop Nick's name, and you can get the red carpet treatment.
Well, and that's why I didn't go there this time. I'm tired of talking about Nick, no, I'm kidding, but no, that's true. Nick is a legend down at St. Thomas Aquinas. I think it starts with Michael Irvin, Nick, and then I think Brian Piccolo after Nick.
Well, yeah. They didn't name the field after him.
I mean, it's a big drop off to get to Piccolo after Nick. Obviously,
there's a gap.
It's no, but hey, look, I mean, we saw a lot of good players down there. I think Jeremiah Smith's the one that everybody's the most interested in, and the receiver that's committed to Ohio State goes to Chaminade Madonna Prep, just south of the Fort Lauderdale Airport. But then Chauncey Bowens up in Palm Beach Gardens at the Benjamin School. Eric Kresser, former Gator quarterback, is the coach. A lot of intrigue there. And so we'll dive into it. What do you guys want to know?
Absolutely. Well, anytime you talk recruiting, fans want to hear you talk about 5 stars. And Keith, you went to go see them this week. You were all over the road and saw numerous 5 stars, a handful of them to be specific. Let folks know kind of what you learned on the trail. You mentioned Jeremiah Smith. Who are some of the other 5 stars that you and Corey went to go see, and kind of where Florida stands with them?
Well, I think Corey saw more than me because he was at IMG Academy last night, which would be Wednesday night. But Jeremiah Smith, obviously the 5-star receiver, number 2 player in the country, number 1 receiver in the country, committed to the Buckeyes. But he's going to officially visit Florida on June 2nd. The week before, he's going to be at the big NIL symposium that On3 is sponsoring up in Nashville with his parents. And that's big because DJ Lagway, Florida's 5-star quarterback commit, will be there. I know they know each other, and Nick and I have talked about this. I don't know how close they are. I didn't really dig into that part of the relationship during this last interview because I had 4 minutes, by the way. And I knew I was going to see him up in Nashville next week anyway. So you kind of don't want to get everything out. You want.
Sure.
I felt like it'd be more important to ask him about Lagway after they spend time together than before. But look, he talks up the Florida staff, likes Billy Gonzalez, the receivers coach, loves his track record. He could name a bunch of guys that Billy Gonzalez has coached and ended up making the NFL. I mean, I didn't have to throw out names. He named them. Seems to like Billy Napier, seems to like the atmosphere and the vibe up in Florida. But let's be honest. When you talk about what wide receiver U is right now, it's Ohio State. And so he's committed to the Buckeyes. He says, hey, look, I'm pretty solid to Ohio State. But so then I said, does Florida have a chance, a realistic chance? Shoot me straight. If they don't, they don't. That's fine. He says they do. We'll see. Now, I think what he means is he's going to go in with an open mind to these official visits. Some other schools are going to get official visits. He's going to Georgia this weekend. Well, they just picked up a 5-star QB commit on their own this week, and that's Dylan Raiola. So he knows him well. So Georgia's recruiting at an extremely high level, obviously. He's also going to officially visit Penn State. I think they're way more of a long shot than these two schools. But he's given Florida a chance. That's all you can ask for. I think it's going to be a hard flip at the end of the day. But, guys, with the NIL, a lot more things are possible, right?
Sure.
So is Florida what does the season look like this year? How does DJ Lagway play in the fall? What kind of relationship does Lagway build with him? What kind of relationship does Billy Gonzalez continue to build with him? A lot of unknown variables, or we know the variable, we just don't know the result of the variable yet. And so a lot to shake out. But look, Auburn's got a shot. 5-star at IMG Academy that Corey Bender saw. David Stone, 5-star defensive lineman. He's going to officially visit Florida, we think, June 2nd. So, again, if you get a guy for an official visit, you think, hey, you've got a shot as a program. Now, he's from Oklahoma City, and most people see the Sooners as being a big favorite there. We know Michigan State's involved. We know Texas A&M's involved. We know some others are involved. But he keeps visiting Florida. He's giving them a look. Okay, that's what you can. That's all you can ask for. But I think that's a little bit of a long shot too. But Florida seems to be in a better spot with him than they were a month ago. So long shots can become more realistic shots if things keep moving in the right direction for you. So we'll have to see. I mean, let's see when he visits and let's see how that official visit goes. I'm trying to think of some other 5-stars. I saw Josiah Trader, the 5-star receiver, who's the teammate of Jeremiah Smith at Chaminade Madonna Prep. Florida's in it. Miami's in it. Florida State's in it. Some other schools, Ohio State. He's going to start taking official visits at some point. We think maybe June. He doesn't have any set. There's some. He's taking his time on setting official visits. I think there's some stuff going on in his personal life that may dictate some of that. But he says Florida's got a chance. People close to him seem to think Florida has a chance. I mean, I know FSU's certainly in it, and then obviously Miami and Ohio State, like I said. But a lot of these are just going to take some time. We're going to know more after they officially visit. I couldn't say is Florida in his top 2 or top 3. With Jeremiah Smith, probably top 3. With David Stone, it's hard to know if Florida's in his top 3 again. But you're getting official visits. That's
sure.
Really the important thing. What other 5-stars did I see?
Well, and Colin Simmons, obviously, he gave some props to Lagway.
That's right. We got an interview with him, but he's out in Texas, obviously. Did not see him in person. Again, another one where we think maybe Texas, LSU are probably his top group, with A&M, Texas A&M right in that mix too. But we think Florida's probably going to get an official visit. I mean, he says they are. We just don't know when yet.
Sure.
And DJ Lagway's in his ear, and he said, look, DJ Lagway's recruiting me better than a lot of colleges are. So if you're a Florida fan, that's exciting for 2 reasons. One, because you think he's going to officially visit. And 2, you want to know your quarterback commit is invested in the class and recruiting, because we know what DJ Lagway says. I'm locked in. We know what people in Florida think. He's locked in. We also know what we're hearing out there, which is, well, you never know, right?
Well, schools aren't going to stop recruiting.
That's right. And 2 in particular, we've heard Southern Cal and Texas A&M, continue to heavily pursue him. And what have those 2 schools done well? They're NIL, right? And so, you got to be leery of this stuff at all times. I mean, and that's okay. you know why that's okay? Because knowing that, Florida knows they can't take the foot off the gas.
Yep.
So it's probably a good thing for Florida that it's out there that A&M is still pursuing them. It's probably a good thing for Florida that USC is probably still pursuing him. That's okay. Look, if a kid doesn't want to be at your school at the end of the day, that's the way it's going to go. I mean, it would just absolutely be heartbreaking for Florida if he didn't end up there. But again, right now he's saying all the right things. There's no reason to assume he won't be there. But that said, knowing that these other schools are still got the foot on the gas with them, that's okay, because that means Florida is going to just continually stay on him. But again, if he's recruiting other guys like we hear he is, then he's invested in the class. Chauncey Bowens, the 4-star running back commit, who Georgia's still heavily pursuing, he told me 2 days ago, he said, yeah, I talk to DJ all the time, all the commits. We're close. DJ's working on trying to tell him, look, let's go get some receivers. Let's go get some linemen. So it feels like DJ is invested in things. Again, that's more important to me than the fact that Colin Simmons may or may not visit, because we know that Florida's got some catching up to do, probably with A&M, Texas, and LSU. But if your QB's out there putting time in, that cannot be a bad thing.
Absolutely. And Nick, you know that this is an important time for recruiting, and you've spent time on the trail. I've spent time on the trail. Corey's been out there. This is Key's first time really getting exposed to this coaching staff and kind of how they operate. What have been your takeaways from just this evaluation period? Some of the UF staff members that you've gotten a chance to interact with at practices, and just how they go about trying to build their board.
I think I've run into, I don't know all that, but I think I've run into 4 or 5 of the guys. And Sean Spencer was impressive because I got to watch him interact. You're not just watching. Look, this time of year, they can't really talk to the kids while they're at the school. That's the rule. You can say hi, but you can't have extended periods of contact with them. And so of any length. So really it's about personal interactions you're observing with other coaches, like the high school coaches, with other college coaches that are there. How do they treat people? And so Sean Spencer I ran into at the front, and I wrote about this at the front of Orlando Jones. And there were Orlando Jones High School, and there were 2 ladies that worked up the front. One was a Miami fan, one was an FSU fan. He had some great natural banter with them. It wasn't forced. He wasn't awkward. He was rolling with the punches, and they were too. And my guess is when he left, he had 2 new fans, a Florida State fan and a Miami fan, because he's so good at these personal. It can make you really see and understand how he's able to connect with recruits, because I saw him do it with the lay person, with the average person. What you don't want out of your coaching staff, I mean, look, you want them to be able to get recruits, but if you want to be able to see them connecting with other people, because to get recruits, you don't just have to connect with the recruit. You got to connect with mom, dad, Uncle Fred, Aunt Josephine, Grandpa Lou. You got to connect with people of all walks of life, black, white, Hispanic, everything. And so, so you watch a coach walk into the front of a school and naturally just get into a very good flow of a conversation with 2 people that he's never met before, probably is a good sign, right? And so that was interesting to see. Austin Armstrong, probably a little more quiet, the defensive coordinator. Saw him talking to some coaches and, really into the evaluation part. I've seen Billy Gonzalez out, the receivers coach. I've seen Rob Sale out, both videotaping. We understand that Florida's big into the video.
Yeah.
So even though you've seen guys on their huddle film, even though you've seen their game film, they're still getting film at practice. Like TJ Moore, receiver, Tampa Catholic guy, seems like a no-brainer take if you're Florida. And he probably is, but they were still videoing him. They want to be able to put all those guys up that they get side by side, because sometimes that changes your perspective of things.
Yeah.
Hey, he's listed at 6'4", and this guy's listed at 6'2", and then you put their film side by side. It's like, boy, they look like they're the same size. Well, that changes things. I mean, you know what I mean? So it looks like this is a staff that's trying to get as much information as they can. I've heard some of the coaches talking to the high school coaches. They want to know everything about these kids because they want kids to be a fit off the field as much as they are on the field. Because, look, if a kid is happy somewhere, guys, Zach, you know this, Nick, if they're happy, they're going to play harder. They're going to practice harder. They're going to have more invested in the program. What you don't want is a kid that only picks a school because mama wants them there. Because if the kid ain't happy, that changes a lot of things. Yeah, I mean, we all went to schools, and we got to pick where we wanted to go. And so that that kind of makes you happier, I think, when you're there. So there's a lot of things you're looking at, but with these coaches, just how do they interact with the average person? That's what I'm watching at this time of year. And then what are they doing at practice? And we're seeing them actively like zeroed in. I mean, Billy Gonzalez was not talking to a lot of other – I mean, he was zeroed in on TJ Moore for the 30 to 45 minutes I was at practice. He was supremely focused on that receiver target. Sean Spencer at practice was incredibly focused on DeAndre Robinson and Orlando Jones. But again, like I said, I also got to see him interacting, in the coach's office, and I think that's a guy that you can.
And let me add too, Keith, sometimes at these practices in schools, sometimes it can turn into a socializing event between coaches, you don't really get guys that are invested in evaluating kids, and they're just kind of making their rounds because they got to show up at certain high schools.
Sometimes you already have done all your evaluations. You're just there for an appearance, but it's the spring, and the spring is the time of year where you're bored. Guys that were here end up here. Like, there's a lot of this going on in the spring. That's why you see new offers going out. You're like, wait a second. Why did Florida offer a 3-star defensive back in Miami last year?
Well, they saw him, and that's like the spring evaluation period.
Well, that 3-star may now be ahead of a lot of 4-stars on the board. You know what I mean? So Kevin Levy is a 3-star guy that I've been writing about at Cardinal Newman, coached by Jack Daniels, who's got the best name in high school coaching, right? But he also was a walk-on player at Florida back in the day. But Kevin Levy, we have as a 3-star, and I think maybe everybody has as a 3-star. But we hear Florida likes him a lot. We hear FSU likes him a lot, and other schools. And he's 6'1", and he's a corner. And he's run a 10.62, and he's a corner. Why is he ranked a little low? I don't know. I don't get into that. I really don't. I let our rankings team deal with that. They seem to know what they're doing. I played high school golf, for God's sakes. I'm not I'm not Bill Parcells out here. So I leave that to them. But 6'1", 10.62, Florida State after a DB in Florida, in South Florida. He's probably pretty good, right? So that's a guy you pay attention to. But, that's a guy you closely evaluate in the spring. And so, the boards will shift a lot in the spring. They always do. Guys move up, guys move down. Eddie Pierre-Louis, an offensive lineman at Tampa Catholic, I thought he was a little chubby at times last year. He didn't look chubby when I saw him a couple weeks ago. And people noticed that. And so maybe he moves up some boards. Now, he's obviously high on Florida's board. So it's just a good time for those guys to get out, personal interactions, learn about a kid's academics, and make a good impression at these high schools. Because a school like Orlando Jones, where I saw Sean Spencer, he's probably going to be going to every year. Elijah Williams, the former Florida running back and then later cornerback, is the head coach there. So make a good impression of the school. Make it so when you start showing up there, everybody's thrilled to see you. Hey, good to see you again, Coach. And by the way, those two ladies at the front, you know who knows a lot about kids at high schools? Women that work at the front
desk.
Not just women that work at the front, but anybody that works in the front office. It's amazing how much they know. As a matter of fact, I was at a school in Tuscaloosa last week, just looking around. I don't think Florida's in the mix with too many guys, but we were at the school. And boy, those women up front, and again, I don't want to say just women. It was just women at that school, but it can be guys too. Boy, they knew a lot about the top football players at that school. They knew everything, okay? Well, not a bad resource, right? So, they're just trying to learn as much as they can about the kid from as many people as possible because, again, they can't go in and have a 3-hour conversation with the kid this time of year. That's prohibited. You're just going to evaluate.
But there's no time limit on that front desk, though.
What's that?
I said there's no time limit on the front desk.
Well, listen, you can. I will say this. So when I was hanging out with Eric Crusser, I love the name drop, the former Gator quarterback the other day. He said Jabari. I mean, Florida is not messing around with Chauncey Bowens, who Georgia's pushing hard for.
Oh yeah.
Miami's pushing hard to get him on campus. Hippolyte, who used to work in Florida, he's now working at Miami. He's got a good relationship with him. So Florida has to, again, they know what's coming. You cannot take your foot off the gas, and I don't think Jabbar Jaluk has. And I've heard a lot of good things about him, I have to say. I know a lot of coaches at other schools, too, and they think that guy is an elite recruiter. Okay,
he's a dog.
I think the record speaks for itself. This isn't me talking. This is coming from other people, okay? What the hell do I know? I just got here. So he spent a lot of time at Benjamin when he was there. I don't know whether it was last week or the week before. They said he was basically there all day. Okay. Well, that lets your guy know without talking to him. That lets your recruit know you mean business. Okay.
No
Yeah,
doubt.
So,
Jabbar Jalouk, and Sean Spencer have talked to me about about that recruit, and I think they're excited about him. Chauncey was kind of under the radar for a little while, and Florida wasn't having to fight people. They were one of the first schools on him, and now it looks like it's going to be a fight to the end. But you should have asked him about speaking. I think he speaks Mandarin.
oh, does he?
And he's a chess player.
Well, it's Chauncey Bowens.
Yeah.
Well, he's a smart kid, I can tell you that. Let me tell you something about his family. I was going to save this for some notes, but his brother's the D-line coach there. He has another brother that plays at West Point. Actually, this was in a story I read, and his dad's a sheriff down there. I mean, that they don't mess around. I mean, that family means business. And just interviewing him, I don't know about his character. You don't meet a kid and talk to him for 5 minutes and know. That's why I hate when reporters, he's such a great kid, and then they say that about Aaron Hernandez too, right? I mean, you don't know a kid, right? But I will tell you this. You know what I learned in 5 minutes from Chauncey Bowens? You're right, Nick. He's a smart sucker now. This is a high IQ guy, and I talked to some of his team. I mean, he's popular on his team. These are the things you like, okay? Popular on his team, plays hard, highly intelligent. I mean, and then he's really good. And Eric Kresser compared him to Fred Taylor. He said similar build, similar speed. I mean, Zach and I grew up with Fred Taylor. I mean, that's a pretty good guy to be compared to now.
Yeah, I'll take that comparison.
Yeah, I mean, you hate to. Those comparisons are hard sometimes because you don't want to put too much pressure on a kid. You know what I mean?
But Eric played with Fred, so it's not like
Yeah.
That carries weight.
And Eric's doing well, and he loves Florida. I mean, he finished off at Marshall, but that was kind of because he was with Danny Werfel. I mean, he was barely, Danny was Danny, and Eric needed the reps, and it worked out for both of them, obviously. But I mean, it was, I mean, Chauncey Bowens. Again, Georgia's pushing really hard. He says, "Hey, I'm 100% committed." And I said, "But is Georgia a threat?" He said, "Yeah." I go, "Wait." He said, You just said you're 100% committed, but Georgia's a threat. Am I hearing this right?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Look, I mean, 2-time defending national champs.
Of course.
Look at the running backs Georgia's putting in the NFL right now." But again, like I always say, who's the next Georgia? Who's the next Alabama? Who's the next Clemson? Why can't it be Florida, right? Why can't it be someone else? And so Florida has 2 stud running backs committed right now. There's no question about that. I know they're in it with the 5-star running back, sort of, Jared Gibson, who Corey's interviewed down at Bradenton IMG, who we think Texas is probably the team to beat. But, I mean, to have 2 elite running backs in the class and still going after a third, I think they're doing look, Florida's doing pretty good on the recruiting trail this year. I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, look, there's a lot of pieces to be filled, O-line, D-line still, but linebacker solid, running back solid. I'm not worried about Corey Raymond recruiting. And you got a 5-star quarterback committed. So it's just going to be, how does the season shake out? And if it doesn't go as planned, does the class dissolve a little bit, or are you able to convince kids, look, you're going to be the class that turns this thing, back around, and you're going to play early. We're going to have to play early, that kind of stuff. So, we'll see. But right now, you're hearing a lot of positive things from kids about the staff. I hear a lot of good things about Jay Bateman from these kids.
Yeah.
Hear a lot of good things about Russ Calloway. By the way, if I don't mention a guy, it doesn't mean I'm not hearing good things. It's just, you interview kids and they tell you what they tell you. In some position groups, you don't even get to. But tight end I saw last week in Georgia that I really liked, Amir Jackson, a basketball player that's 6'4", 6'5", can really go up and get the ball, and he's pretty well built. And he's super high on Napier and Russ Calloway. Here's one more encouraging thing. His coach told me that, and his coach is kind of the person running his recruitment because for family reasons. I think that's somebody this kid, Amir Jackson of Portal, Georgia, can really lean on. So the coach goes with them on all these visits. He says, by far, Florida's were the most in-depth visits. That's significant. We're hearing over and over again that people, I'll say Chauncey Bowens said this about Billy Napier yesterday. If you can't tell within 2 minutes of meeting this guy that he's authentic, Yeah. The question obviously is going to be, is time going to be on these guys' side, and how much patience do schools have? And I don't know the answer to that. But what I know is that Billy Napier and his staff are connecting with recruits. Not all. It doesn't work that way. Nobody connects with all of them, but with a lot of them. And they're in it with a lot of them. And I only followed Florida from afar the last few years. It feels like they're in it with more big-name guys this cycle than they have been in a while. Now, again, Corey may be able to answer that more sufficiently than I can. But as somebody that was just following Florida casually,
you're correct in that assessment for sure.
It sure seems like that. Well, you're not going to win all those battles at first. It's funny. I know everybody makes fun of Mike Norvell's. Well, I'm probably not making fun of it anymore. But what was his line? First you lose close. No, first you lose big, then you lose close, then you win close, then you win big. That's sort of applicable to recruiting too. Mm-hmm. First you're competing against UMass. Then you start competing with the big boys again. Then you start getting close, then you start winning, and then you really start winning. And it doesn't just happen overnight. In some places it does, no doubt about it. It probably happened more overnight at Georgia than it did at Florida, but let's not forget, in that state, they don't have two other big dogs to recruit against. Yep. And it's less of a transient state than Florida is. And so a lot of the kids in this state, a lot of the top recruits, they don't have any ties to Florida. They just don't. A lot of them do, but a lot of them don't. And so it's a little bit more challenging. And now you've got Georgia and Alabama able to cherry pick down here. Ohio State and Notre Dame always have been able to cherry pick down there. So the competition's a lot more fierce down here. But you can see, it feels like you can see steps being made, right?
Yeah.
Feels like it. The fans may know more than me about that, but.
Yeah, but you're also, Florida's won the SEC the SEC East 4 times since 2008. The kids that are being recruited right now are born in 2009 and 2010. You're not selling, for Florida fans. They remember those trophies and how it felt when Tim Tebow hit I forget Manny, whatever his name is, or down there in the Dolphin Stadium in the national championship. Fans remember that. These guys were in diapers. You're not selling what Alabama is selling. They have championships. They're still shiny, or Georgia.
And that UF logo, if you're a diehard fan, it will always feel like it's this big on your shirt. But to the coaches out there recruiting, when you ain't winning, it's a tiny little logo. It ain't
a scarlet letter.
It ain't it ain't whatever I'm going on. It isn't the Florida that it was. Yeah. That doesn't mean it's not the Florida it can become again, right? Yeah. And so it's still Florida. It's still a prominent logo. It still means a lot to a lot of people, but just it isn't as strong as it was, a few years ago. But these guys are working. Look, they're getting a lot of big-name kids to visit. Getting a 5-star quarterback on board early in the class is eye-opening to a lot of recruits. They're connecting with them on a personal level. It looks like they've done a pretty good job a really good job of just getting kids to visit. So, you think that it's probably going to pay off at some point. Not at some point. That makes it sound like they haven't done good work. You know what I mean, though. It feels like it's headed in the right direction. But again, it's a real challenge. There's no doubt. The competition's stiff. NIL just changed a lot of dynamics, but look, they're in the conversation with a lot. Look, Florida's got 8 commitments. I think 7 of them are 4-star or above right now, and they're in the conversation, in the mix with a lot of dudes. And also, let's not forget, there are guys out there that we're not even mentioning now that they're in it with that we just don't know about because they keep things get kept quiet. And then also, you circle back to other guys, especially now with NIL. You can circle back to guys in the fall more than you ever have before. And I saw this at the previous school I covered with Auburn. They got a new coach in, and next thing you know, they're getting guys that we didn't even think they had a shot with. They flipped the guy from Ohio State. They flipped the guy from FSU's top recruit, really. And so it can be done. So I wouldn't rule out guys. There are guys we're not talking about now that all of a sudden they're gonna pop up at Florida Field in September. We're like, oh my God, didn't even know they were in it with them. So, and one more thing, Chauncey Bowens says the recruits are close to each other. That group of commits, the 8 commits are bonding really well. That's good too.
Yeah.
I think the most encouraging thing I heard all week, if you're a Florida fan, is that like I mentioned earlier, that DJ Lagway seems invested in this class. Now, we don't know what the future holds. Kids are fickle, right? But he seems truly invested in the class, and that's significant.
He doesn't seem like he's going to leave the group chat like Jaden Rashada did with the Miami kids.
Well, you never, I think the one thing you learn when you cover recruiting enough, you never say never, right? But all you can do is right now. You take the temperature of things right now. And right now, it feels like he's locked in. Again, you never know. But it's certainly, that's where things are right now. That's the best way you can put it. That's all you can put it. A few years ago, a newspaper, it might have been the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, kind of did something, how solid are all the Georgia commits. And I think we're going to do something similar to that. And you put percentages and all that stuff, but you also don't always know what's going on behind the scenes.
Sure.
A guy may be locked in, but the school may be recruiting above him. And they may know things, well, his grades aren't where we want him to be, so we're going to drop him in a month. And so there's all kinds of variables out there. There's the known and there's the unknown. And that's kind of why we all follow it. It's crazy and it's stupid, but it's fun. It's enjoyable. It's just it can be stressful for the fans, for the coaches, for the players, for us. You're just trying to get, in journalism, we have what's called the truth gap. You're just trying to, somebody could walk by the three of us and you could ask us, what was that person wearing? And we would give three different answers. That's how hard it is to get to the truth gap, right? You're just trying, or to close the truth gap. You're just trying to get as close to what we think is the truth at all times. But man, it can be hard to get your arms around some of these recruitments. But from what we can tell, Florida is in it with a lot of really, really strong players. And, we've been chronicling most of them.
No doubt. We've been following it. Keith, we're fortunate to have you on to cover all of this. And there's still 2 weeks left in the eval period, so a lot still to come at Gators Online. Let folks know where they can follow you on Twitter and read your work.
Yeah, it's just on 3 Keith. But, at this point, I'm just linking back to the site anyway. I'll start throwing out some opinions one of these days. But, GatorsOnline.com. That's where everybody needs to go. And we're probably putting up about 6 to 8 recruiting stories a day. And filling the message boards with a lot of other intel, a lot of other things. Maybe it's not a whole story. And something I posted last night, a 26 QB to watch. Will Griffin at Tampa Jesuit. Well, he's got some ties to the University of Florida. That's significant. They've already offered him. So we're trying to put information as much as we can on the site right now. Keep people coming back for more, hungry.
No doubt. And then I know you don't like to give away your future destinations, but any stops or
give away the juice.
Give
away the juice.
Yeah, I don't know where I've been I think I've been to 24 schools in the last 3 weeks, or 23 in the last 3. So I don't know. I may do more local stuff next week because I'm getting tired. My body's sore at the end of these days.
You're not as young as you were when you covered Florida the last time.
I've always wanted to hit balls down at the place, it's in Fort Lauderdale where it's in Something About Mary, where Matt Dillon's out there hitting range balls. Yeah, that driving range is down there, and I've always wanted to do it. And I thought I'd have time the other day, and I was just, I gotta go relax before I write kind of mood after, you know what I mean? And so it's not hard work. It's just when you're in your car a lot, how many Iron Maiden songs can one person listen to on a road trip? You know what I mean? I'm doing 100 while I'm playing air guitar. You know what I mean? So, probably more local next week. Probably more local.
For sure. Well, listen, whenever the eval period gets done, Keith, and you have a chance to catch your breath and breathe before all the summer camps start, we would love a feature on Jack Daniels, the walk-on. I think
or the
whiskey.
That's
a story. Or the
Jack
whiskey.
Daniels, the walk-on, or the whiskey, either one. Maybe both. Not for him.
I think he was at Florida. I think it was at Florida in the late 80s. And man, they were going into the probation years, but they didn't have the depth. But they still had some bad dudes on those teams. And I'm talking Jarvis Williams, I'm talking Lewis Oliver, guys that would start for Florida right now could probably beat up everybody on the team right now. You know what I mean? Like they had some bad dudes on the team back then, and I'm sure he's got some stories.
No doubt. Well, we know you got some. We appreciate you sharing them, and we'll have you on a lot throughout the off season as we continue to cover this recruiting class. And we appreciate the time, Keith.
Yeah, y'all take care. See you guys.
Absolutely. That's Keith Niebuhr. Make sure you guys give him a follow and appreciate his work at Gators Online. He's been getting a lot of frequent flyer miles these past couple weeks. And we're going to switch gears here and talk some Florida football. But before we do that, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Prairie Dental Center. The doctor is a UF grad who's practiced in Gainesville for 3 decades and developed a deep understanding of how to diagnose and treat various dental problems, along with advanced skills and knowledge to provide more effective and efficient care to his patients. If you're having dental concerns or just need a cleaning, Prairie Dental Center offers a wide range of personalized care options to meet your individual needs. Give their office a call at 352-373-3431. Tell them Gators Online sent you, and your new patient exam will be free. And we have, just like Keith, been all over the road as well, covering Billy's speaking tour. Keith's made some stops. Nick has made some stops. We got one more coming up in Gainesville. And you got to go home this week, Nick. I know this is probably one of the best speaking tours that you get to go to. But first of all, talk about that trip and how it was down there in Miami.
Yeah, any opportunity to go down and see my family. I mean, shoot, we're under 50 days till the wedding, so I'll be seeing a bunch of them, when the wedding comes around. But get to hang out with mom, dad, see my sister as well. Hit up my spot cheese course. If you're looking for a franchise cheese course and you're listening to this, I will open one up here in Gainesville just so I can eat that number 7, the prosciutto di Parma, and then get down to go see Billy. And it was raining in that area, down by the airport. That area floods, so I got there early. Got to talk with a lot of the people as they were there, as they were trickling in. Everyone wants to know about recruiting. Everyone wants to know about NIL. And it was really cool. Introduced my dad to Billy and Scott and Osh. PJ Osh was down there flying down with Florida, and they had an overnight trip. So I think that was something that was different than a lot of these speaking tours. Is they flew down and had a business meeting for lunch, then had the Gator Club meeting, and then there was a dinner meeting where I don't think I could afford the plate. The cost of attendance for that meeting with the boosters they were speaking with down there. So it was a multifaceted trip for Billy Napier, and for me it was an opportunity to. I've been to a lot of these things, man. Zach, you as well, but this is my 4th different coach since I've been covering Florida, and they all have different attitudes towards these speaking tours. And speaking tours change. And I put it in my column that came out this morning. Nobody is more beloved than a coach who's 0-0 or a coach coming off a national championship. Billy Napier is neither of those things, but still getting a good reception on the road. As the questions do get tougher when you're coming off of a losing season.
Yeah, and obviously, I would think that. Because I haven't been to as many this year as I went to last year. There was a lot of excitement and enthusiasm for Billy.
Hope.
And yes, hope. I think obviously the way that he came off, the first impression that he made on some of these Gator clubs, and I thought that was one of your great takeaways that you had. And if Florida fans haven't checked it out yet, on Gators Online, published Thursday, 3 takeaways from Billy Napier's spring speaking tour. And, one of them that you had, Nick, was, taking the temperature in the room, a little temperature check. And, wanting to see, is that enthusiasm still there? Is the pulse changed a little bit? And surprisingly, from your perspective, it really hasn't. They still – I think, maybe there's more questions now that they have things that they're looking forward to. But in terms of Billy, I think that there's still a belief and excitement for who he is as a man, what he can do as a coach. And that, they're still willing to be patient. I don't know how long that patience will last, but I think that they are maybe willing to give him some time this year. And obviously year 3, because of how he comes across in these Gator clubs, and the way that he kind of presents himself and the program.
It's always interesting, and I don't know that. I'm trying to remember. Ed Orgeron cursed at a FSU fan or an LSU fan on his call-in show. These could get contentious, but I think a lot of what happens specifically in person is you're humanized. This is someone who I only read about on TV, someone who I only see on or read about on TV, read about online, or see on TV. And then you get in, and Billy talks about his family, and he knows the families of recruits, and he's talking, intimately and in detail about the players and their lives. And it's like, okay, this guy knows his team. He cares about these players. You're going to be judged on wins and losses at the end of the day, but going to these events, and getting around the people themselves, it makes them a person, not just that football coach on TV.
Yeah, and I also think too, like just some of the nuggets that we've had a chance to learn throughout the spring speaking tour. Just some of the things that when we get to talk to him in a one-on-one setting at some of these places, and then at other spots, maybe there's only 2 or 3 reporters there. I think one of the very
I was one-on-one in Miami, Zach, just me and Billy hanging out.
There we go. That's like the third one-on-one that Gators Online's had, one of these speeches. And but it's great for us because we obviously get a chance to talk to him as he's going through the offseason, as he's dealing with some of the stuff with the transfer portal. I think a very key moment that he had in this speaking tour was when he made the stop in Sarasota. And he had a lot of media outlets that showed up to that one, Nick, and you were there. Or excuse me, we were there. Keith was there, and he kind of addressed the transfer portal concerns and complaints and some of the criticisms that were out there. And I think that it was important for him to do that.
You think
because
that
if not, then that's lingering on.
Do you think that all started on our show with our conversation the week prior?
I mean, we were also addressing a lot of complaints that fans had been having.
Right.
It wasn't like we were the only ones that were talking about it. And I think he, like you said in your story, Nick, his head wasn't in the sand.
Yeah.
So, we got to obviously learn about that. I think that, one of the obviously things that he said that I thought stood out as we go through this offseason, and one of the biggest storylines is the quarterback competition. Well, when he talked about Graham Mertz having a 145, quarterback rating in the spring game, now weeks removed from it, talking about Graham Mertz's career starts and how, there's few quarterbacks that have more than him. And then just this week where he talked about how many 4D players that he thinks are going to be on this year's team. And that was kind of a cool story to write, but it's just some different content, some different conversations that I think maybe allows you to peel back a little bit more about the team and the program in the offseason.
Yeah. And it's always important to see what the messaging is to the fans. Billy is steadfast in his belief in the quarterback room, which I don't share the belief, but listen, I'm not the one making the calls, and I'm not the one that would lose $1 million or $7 million job if the call is wrong. So he knows Billy Napier has probably forgotten more football than the people covering him know about football. So there's a reason why they're the coaches and we write stories. So he's steadfast in his belief in the quarterback room. He's steadfast in belief that they have a good football program. They're going to be young in spots, and we've covered that. But Billy Napier is not going into the year, like the ESPN or the DraftKings projection with 5.5 wins. And I literally heard a fan telling Billy Napier that I can't believe that Vegas said 5.5 wins. And I go back and look at this, and some of those interactions are really cool. Billy Napier would tell you to bet the over on 5.5. So a lot of coaches might feel like that in the spring right now, but he has a lot of confidence in his football program.
Now, one guy that's going to be joining that football program, I think as you guys hear this episode, he will be moving into his next place, and that is Lindell Hudson Jr. From Florida International, was committed to South Florida and has since flipped to the Gators following his official visit over the weekend. He was not a guy that we were able to cover on the last episode that we had, and kind of a surprise visitor in a way. but a guy that kind of his offer and his recruitment came together rather quickly. And, once Florida, missed out on one of their targets along the offensive line, they kind of turned their attention to Hudson. And Nick, you and I both said that we felt like offensive line was a position that they needed to address. We broke this news at Gators Online, this flip to Florida, and you had the story. Give Gator fans a little bit background about Lindell and kind of what he's going to bring to this offensive line.
Yeah, he's been a starter at FIU. Dealt with some back injuries last year. Kind of dig into some of his PFF grades, and I think this is a piece for Florida that gives you depth. I don't know that he comes in and starts at tackle. I think you've got Damian George and Keontae Goodwin kind of battling for that right tackle spot. And I think one of those, or both of those actually, Zach, could probably slide into guard. I think we both expect Richie Leonard to start at right guard. And obviously the other tackle spot is Austin Barber. So I think when you look at Hudson, it's a guy for me that is a depth piece and a depth take. But after watching, Micah Mazuka get hurt, Kingsley deal with some nagging injuries, and finally just get, hey, just take the spring game off. You see where the depth is.
Yeah, and then Waits, and then you also
Cam Waits and
Jalen
Cam Waits. I mean, Farmer didn't play at all in the spring, and Cam Waits, obviously at 6'8", 360 pounds,
creature.
What is the timeline to come back with a ruptured Achilles?
He's not going to be ready for the season opener.
His Achilles holds more weight than mine does, and I haven't been losing weight either, Zach. So it's what's the timeline for somebody who has a blown Achilles? What time does he get back, and what time is he 100%?
And you reported this when the injury happened. According to UF Health, that full recovery could take 9 months. So he was injured in January. He's not going to be ready August 31st. When beginning of August comes, he's going to be 7 months removed from his injury. Now, if he was a running back or a cornerback or, was a little bit lighter on his feet, it might be a little bit easier. He might not need the full 9 months. But I also don't think that he was necessarily going to start, but he was going to be in the rotation. I mean, he started in the bowl game, and but was a guy that had moved to guard after playing tackle. So by getting Hudson there, you get some depth, like you said, Nick, that I think is important. And God forbid, injuries are a part of the game, and if they happen at the tackle position, now you've got more pieces there that you can turn to.
Yeah. So I don't know that this is I don't know that there were many guys in the transfer portal. I think
Do you think Josh Simmons would have started?
I think he would have had a way better chance to start. I think that's really the one that you missed in the transfer portal. And I've screamed at this screen.
We got a segment coming up, so you could save it.
Maybe hurt some headphone users, but it is what it is with him. Like you've got your process, you're sticking to your process and your evaluations. Simmons wasn't going to wait. I think Simmons would have been a guy who could have competed for a starting job. I don't think Lindell Hudson does. I think he's more of a depth piece, but it's an important piece that you needed to fill. An experienced player who can come in in a pinch, if someone gets injured or somebody loses a helmet. Hey, who do we have to go in for a play because somebody lost a helmet?
And if you guys ever lose a helmet and got any issues going on, or got any head trauma or headaches or whatever the case may be, I want to encourage you guys to go visit rogueshop.com. Any issues sleeping, chronic pain, anxiety, or stress, Rogue Shop sells CBD, THC, edibles, smokables, and vapes, as well as handcrafted bath salts, soaps, candles, massage oils, pain creams, and topicals. Rogue Shop is a true small business, disabled, veteran-owned, Black-owned, women-owned company. They have 5 employees, make all of their products with their own cannabis grown in their manufacturing facility. Visit rogueshop.com. That's ROGUE shop.com. I need to probably try a candle or soap. I think that's next on my agenda. You know, the gummies were good, the cream was good, but they got a whole supply. You know, so definitely give them a try. And Nick, Antonio Carter decided he wasn't going to give the Gators a try. And you hit the timeline with a Good Morning Zach Albaverdi this week. Had to bring up the clip from last week's episode where I touted Florida's evaluation process, or more specifically, this recruitment as an example of that evaluation process not costing them an opportunity to host a kid. To which you said, well, that was beautifully said, but if he visits Notre Dame and commits, those words sounded good. Well, you spoke that into existence.
Oh, no. Don't put this on me. I didn't speak this into existence.
You said our other conversation got something else going into existence, so who knows?
I could have. That doesn't pay, but that puts me in a good light, not a bad one. So we'll information I like is true.
It is. Well, Florida fans did not like this information because in addition to Lindell Hudson, Antonio Carter was supposed to visit Florida this weekend. He did not make it to Gainesville after taking a trip to Notre Dame and committing to the Fighting Irish. He also didn't make it to LSU as well. Now, before we give the floor to Nick and he has a chance to tell them that they were wrong for waiting so long, LSU waited along the same timeline. Notre Dame offered, I think, maybe 2 days before Florida. But it could be said that if the Gators jumped on this one, they could have had this in the bag maybe weeks before that Notre Dame offer ever even came. So, Nick, what is your reaction to this recruitment? And do you think that it's even worth making that much of a big deal about? Because obviously Florida fans were not happy with it when this happened.
Yeah, I think Antonio Carter is a guy that would have competed with Jadarius Perkins at Star. I don't know if he's coming in the immediate starter. I think he would have competed. My thoughts on their evaluations in the portal are clear. I think it can work in the first half or the first transfer window when you've got time. You've got 45 days. You're going to miss out on guys. There's guys who, tampering is illegal. But there's teams and schools and guys who enter the portal and they're in the portal for 24 hours.
Not even that sometimes.
Maybe it's just love at first sight. That's what it is. No one's tampering. Just guys look at a school and they go, man, I'd love to go there. I hope a coach texts me. And if he does, I'll commit right away. Maybe that's what's happening. And you're going to miss out on some guys by the time you do your evaluation. They might already know where they're going. When we found out that Antonio Carter had canceled his LSU visit, my first thought wasn't, oh, good. He must just really be in on Florida. It was, he's sending out this tweet right under Touchdown Jesus is what he's doing up there in South Bend, Indiana. And I don't think he's leaving. He's going to be a Golden Domer. So it is what it is. Yeah, and maybe part of this second window is it's going to happen because now, it's recruiting and we're ranking guys, the various sites are ranking guys in the transfer portal. And FSU is getting all of these top 10 guys. It's like, okay, well, this isn't the high school recruiting ranks where you're ranking everybody. These are just, it's what's available. And it'd be like, maybe you're in a situation where, hey, we're ranking Taco Bell, Del Taco, and McDonald's. And it's like, okay, well, we're not rating Michelin stars here. It's a nice affordable meal that gets the job done. But when I see people, we're missing out on top 10 guys in the portal. It's like, okay, well, the top 10 guy in the portal was the 7th best receiver on his team last year. So yeah, we're not missing out on a Embers ribeye. Or, it might be a very muscly piece of meat that was, left over at Winn-Dixie that you're arguing about. So I don't agree with Florida's evaluation and the way that they do things in this 2-week period because I think it's too slow and it's speed dating. But I also don't know that there were a ton of guys, and I keep saying it, I don't know that there were a ton of dudes in this available in this window. You know, Caleb Williams was not in the window. Drake May did not transfer. Grayson McCall did not get in the transfer portal. They're the guys that I think Florida fans are looking for to make me feel, you know, not me personally, but make them feel that Florida can go from 5 to 7 wins to 9 wins. That guy wasn't in the portal. So we were looking for game-changing help to come in and save the program. Those guys just weren't available.
Yeah. And I think the question now, and we got it on our live chat that we do every Wednesday night at Gators Online. A lot of folks wanted to know, hey, what's still left? What's next now for Florida in the transfer portal? They've gotten Lindell Hudson Jr. They've signed RJ Moten. They've missed on a couple guys. And now the dust has settled. The portal is closed. There may be a grad transfer here or there that could enter, but I think nobody that they can count on. So what do you see now as where they go from here, Nick? Because they've addressed safety. They've addressed offensive line. Do they go wide receiver? Do they go edge?
Yeah, I think speaking with Billy last night, edge is a position where they felt great, and then Antoine Powell-Ryland Jr. left. And he wasn't going to start. That was going to be Princely Mumielen. And that's probably why Powell leaves, is because, I was going to be the starter, and you moved a guy over from defensive end. What the heck is happening here?
Come on.
So in safety is an area where I think they're just going to be resigned to the fate. They're like, hey, we're going to have to play some freshmen. At some point, a freshman's going to have to play here. You get RJ Moten in, and that gives you a veteran leader who has a potential to start. I think you ticked off 2 boxes there. But you're like Jordan Castell, Bryce Thornton, like, hey, you're a twisted ankle from being in a very quick rotation of guys who are in, and you're just going to be young at that position. I think at tight end, you're just going to be young because Zipper is out. Jonathan Odom, what is he going to be like coming back from his knee surgery? Arliss Boardingham's not a true freshman, but very green. Hayden Hansen, very green as a redshirt freshman. So those are 2 positions you're going to be very young at. I just don't think that there's a great option at edge.
I tell you what, it's a good thing Xanders came back.
Well, I don't know if you're making friends saying that, but yeah, Dante Xanders is going to be one of your 2 starting tight ends.
Yeah, otherwise you'd be starting a redshirt freshman. That's not 2.
That's not where you'd be starting 2 redshirt freshmen with Zip out, and if Xanders didn't come back, and with Zip out,
and if Odom's not ready,
you'd be starting 2 redshirt freshmen or having 2 redshirt freshmen in a heavy rotation with Jonathan Odom.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what they do. I think obviously they were probably hoping to get a nickel too that has not materialized. There were some guys.
I think you tried Jaden Hill there, and I just don't know that with all of the knee surgeries that he's gone through, I don't know that he is the guy that you want to put inside that's making those super quick cuts. And on defense, you're reactionary. And in that spot, playing nickel, you're guarding guys who are 6'4", 240 pounds as tight ends. And you're guarding, 5'10", 175-pound guys who ran a 10-100 in high school. You're guarding a bunch of different guys, and I think that it was a good thought. Hey, let's see what Jaden Hill can play here, and that way we can get our best 5 defensive backs on. But I think he's more suited for the outside when you've got, an extra defender in the sideline helping you there.
Now, I'm going to put this name on the screen, Nick, and I'm going to let you, our pronunciation expert, try to say it. I can say the first name, and that's Cameron. Oh, you're muted. You're muted, just so you know.
I said it perfectly. What do you mean? I said it perfectly. You didn't hear it? That's on you. If you go to the roster, I'm trying to find him on UL's roster.
And for folks who are not watching this and are just listening, we are talking about a former Louisiana defensive back, first team All Sun Belt, guy that played for Billy. He's played every single spot in the secondary. But this past offseason in the spring was working as the star for the Raging Cajuns. And he's 5'8", though. So
I'm going to try it. Cam Pettisco. Pettisco? That EAUX.
Yes.
That
Yes.
EAUX. So it might be Pettisco. Pettisco.
KP.
KP.
If I'm looking at players in the portal still left, I mean, you got to think that might be the only one that, or one of the few, should I say, that maybe could be in the mix. But again, is he the answer at star? Is he the answer at safety? Again, he's 5'8", so a shorter guy, but going to have some tough assignments in the SEC playing that star position. But I think probably be more suited to play there than at safety. So, and then at wide receiver, Coleman was a guy that they kicked their tires on, but he, never really any traction there. And he's committed to Florida State now. And Zahari Franklin is the best wide receiver available in the portal. But don't know if is he a guy that can't get into Florida? Is there grades there? I don't know what his situation is,
because we really haven't heard much about him. I heard a lot of Colorado smoke, FSU smoke. Ole Miss and FSU went down to the wire for Keon Coleman. He commits to FSU. I believe that was on Wednesday. So Ole Miss, I think would turn their attention. Dion, I don't know how many guys he has on his roster right now. He might be at 60 finally.
And he just landed Alton McCaskill, who visited Florida, and I think never heard anything out of that trip. And the writing was on the wall. He saw Florida's running back room, was like, "Thanks for the free vacation, but I'm not going to take carries here." I don't think another running back they'll go after.
No. You're fine there. McCaskill was a unique position because he has 3 years to play. I don't think he stays on campus 3 years. Running backs, it's not a premium position in the NFL unless you're going to be, a first-round pick. If by coming back for a fourth year, you're about getting to your second contract. Now, like Bijan Robinson is different. I don't know that Montrell Johnson. I would be surprised if Montrell Johnson is a first-round running back next year. So you don't have that fifth-year guarantee. You leave. You don't. And the way Florida is going to run the ball this year too, Zach, Montrell Johnson coming back for his senior year,
he could have 200 carries this year.
Might put another 200 carries on his tires. So the idea at running back is to get to the league and get to your second contract, especially at running back, as quickly as possible, because a lot of running backs aren't getting a third contract. So you need to get to your second to where the real payday is for you. Alton was a guy who would have 3 years left. So when people were like, I want a quarterback, and Billy's like, hey, here's a running back coming on an official visit. You're like, what the heck is it? What is this? What do you mean? He's a guy who would have been the starter next year with ETN. And that would have been your 1-2 with Treon Webb as a backup. And it probably would have forced Treon Webb to redshirt this year. And now maybe they just get more out of Treon Webb as a freshman. But I had no problem with them, despite how deep the running back room is, had no problem with them going after him and getting him on a visit. You're muted.
If he wants to come, bring it on. I'm sure that was the staff's attitude.
That was Cam Carroll's attitude. I'm coming.
Yeah.
They're going to have to see me, was Cam Carroll's attitude.
And he showed in the spring game that he's going to be in that rotation. And that was one of my questions from the mail stack this week was where Florida's running back room ranks in the SEC. So encourage you guys to go check that out. So we'll wrap up the show as we always do, dedicated to Florida baseball. And shout out to Perry for the meme this week.
We got a meme this week?
Yeah, well, this past week
okay.
from the suite. Little Nick, he brought out Little Nick there. But man, they took care of business at home, and now they go on the road against Kentucky before we get into postseason play, Nick.
Mhm. Yeah, if you're a Florida Gator baseball fan, I think Gators Online is the place to be. We've got a community that has shunned Zach from ever stepping foot into the into the press box at Condren Ballpark. I got bullied into opening our live game threads early, and then Florida sweeps Vanderbilt, and now guess what? The game thread's been open all day long. Their baseball fans are superstitious. But it's a really great community. Enjoy hanging out with them all season. The season really flew by, and everyone that hangs out with me on Tuesdays and Wednesdays in February during rain delays and pitching changes in the ninth inning. I have them to thank for that. So Florida, I put up a story. It's a premium story, so I'm not going to break it down here, but you can check it out. And you can get 6 months of Gators Online for just $29.99, which will take you through most of football season. So I broke down how Florida can win. I had to do math, Zach, so I had to double, triple, quadruple check my math. We're doing that, but broke down how Florida can win the SEC. Arkansas, LSU, Florida really competing this Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Interestingly enough, Florida, the rain ruined Hurston Waldrop's start on Saturday, but it allows Florida to kind of shuffle things up. So now Hurston Waldrop will throw Thursday night against Kentucky. Brandon Sproat gets his normal week to pitch and to get his normal rest, and he'll pitch Friday night against Kentucky against Zach Lee. And then you get Jack Caglione, who's coming off, in my opinion, the best start of his career. 6.2 innings pitched is a career high. 9 strikeouts, also a career high. And Hurston Waldrop looked really good. Looked 10 pitches, sat him up, sat him down in order. So it'll be a tough series for Florida. Kentucky has only lost, I think, 2 SEC home games this year. Winning at home is tough. Florida swept Vanderbilt, who was the number one team in the SEC heading into the weekend. So Kentucky's 15-12 in the SEC, batting 300. Slashing 300, 426, 452. And the Wildcats, I think, will have their hands full with Florida, but this is a huge weekend for the Gators. They have an opportunity to win the SEC, something they haven't done since 2018. And the most important thing for Florida is getting out of this week healthy. They've had some injury history this year, getting out of this week healthy, and then go to Hoover. And then next week in Hoover, Gators Online will be there. I'm dragging my dad with me to Hoover. So I'm going to enjoy my time there with him. But the next week in Hoover really is going to be about setting your pitching staff up for regionals. And I think what Florida did last week, in my opinion, Florida has earned a national seed this year. And when we talk about just now, and I talk about how hard it is to win on the road, being a national seed, being able to host a regional and a super regional is huge. It's huge. I went out to Lubbock, Texas in 2019, Zach, and watched people out there, and it didn't end well. So being able to host is huge. And there'll be some skepticism. Florida's lost the last 2 regionals they've hosted at home. This is the longest period of time since Kevin O'Sullivan has been here that Florida hasn't been to Omaha. And there's more than 290 teams in Division I baseball. Only 8 of them get to Omaha. So it tells you the program, the caliber of the program that Kevin O'Sullivan has built. So unless Florida, in my opinion, gets swept by Kentucky and then loses both of their games in the SEC tournament in Hoover, I think Florida's done enough to earn a top 8 seed, which is huge. And sweeping Vanderbilt did a lot to kind of solidify that for me.
It did, and it also brought out the memes as well. And I want to give an apology to Dan Thompson for
DK
not giving him the proper credit. I gave it to Perry, who I will give his credit as well. But it was Dan Thompson who brought out little Nicholas on the timeline.
Yeah, I've known Dan. I've known Dan for 12 years. We're friends on Facebook, so
he's got a supply.
Dan's got ammo. Dan's got a chopper in the car. Dan's got ammo. There's lots of young Nick pictures on Facebook.
Gators beat writer Nick Del Torre enjoyed watching Florida skate their way to another sweep of your baseball team.
That's a dope picture. I peeked early, man. I
Well,
gotta
and
be
then
like 4 years old in that picture or something.
and then Perry used the I don't know where you are, but you got some goggles on your head.
Universal Studios. Those are
Okay.
you have a young daughter. What are those guys? The little yellow guys with the glasses, the goggles?
Oh,
Minions.
Yeah, Minions. Okay,
Something
those
like
are the
that.
Minion glasses.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
it was
says
at Universal.
thanks to your Series L, Gators beat writer Nick Del Torre can see UF's baseball path to hosting a super regional more clearly.
I gotta get him back on other people. They were hitting up Don. They hit up Jacob Rudner. They hit up you. I've been in the crosshairs for the last 2 weekends.
We need to send him at Keith Never.
Yeah. I got to give him some pictures of Keith.
Well, shout out to Keith again. Appreciate his time and letting us know everything from the recruiting trail, but not all of it. You'll have to read Gators Online to get the full juice. And as Nick would say, it is worth the squeeze. So make sure you guys check it out.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this part of the podcast, you see that down there. Like, subscribe. It does a huge. It really helps us grow and helps get our show sent out and recommended to more people. And it costs you free $99 to hit that like and hit that subscribe button.
Absolutely. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. And as always, we'll be back next week with another episode. We'll see how things go in Lexington. We'll see how things shake out on the recruiting trail. If any new transfers show up on campus, we'll be covering it all at Gators Online. So we'll see you guys next Friday. For Nick Del Torre, I'm Zach Albervert.